Sean Carter grew up in the Marcy Projects in Brooklyn. No father, crack epidemic outside the window, and a talent for rap that, by any logical measure, should have made him rich. It did, just not the way you think. Jay-Z has made over $2 billion. Music is responsible for 4% of it. 4%. The man literally redefined hip-hop as a side hustle. So where did the other 96 come from? It's 1996. Jay-Z can't get a record deal. Every major label passes on him. So instead of begging, he starts his own label, Rockefeller Records. He doesn't just make music, he owns the company making the music. Most artists rent space in the industry. Jay-Z bought the building. Then he watches the music industry like a hawk and realizes something most artists are too busy recording to notice. The money isn't in the song, it's in everything around the song. So he starts moving sideways. 1999, he launches Rocawear, a clothing line that eventually hits $700 million a year in revenue. He sells it for $204 million cash. Not streams, not royalties, a wire transfer with 9 figures. Then he gets into alcohol. Specifically, the business of selling it to people who think expensive champagne makes them important. In the early 2000s, Jay-Z was putting Cristal champagne in every music video. Free advertising worth millions. Then the brand's managing director casually suggested that hip-hop's enthusiasm for their product was unwelcome. Jay-Z's response wasn't a diss track. He publicly buried Cristal, stopped mentioning it, stopped drinking it on camera. And just like that, an entire culture dropped the brand overnight. Then he bought a rival champagne called Armand de Brignac, the gold bottle, the ace of spades, put it in his music videos, and let the culture do the rest. By 2021, LVMH, the conglomerate that owns Louis Vuitton, Dom Perignon, and half the world's luxury market, bought 50% of Armand de Brignac. The brand was valued at over $600 million. He didn't start a winery. He weaponized a cultural moment and attached a product to it. Same exact play with Douce Cognac. Partner with Bacardi, inject culture, sell the majority stake in 2023 for $750 million from a single transaction. Then there's Tidal, his music streaming platform. Everyone laughed. Spotify was already winning. Apple Music was already winning. But Jay-Z wasn't trying to beat Spotify. He sold 80% of Tidal to Jack Dorsey's company for $302 million, on a platform the entire internet had written off as dead. He sold a so-called failure for $300 million. And quietly, running parallel to all of this, tech. He invested $2 million in Uber before it went public. That stake grew to over $70 million. He launched Marcy Venture Partners, a venture capital fund now sitting close to $900 million in assets. The kind of fund where young engineers work 80-hour weeks building startups while Jay-Z collects the upside. The pattern is the same every single time. Find something undervalued. Use cultural influence to make it aspirational. Sell it to a giant who needs what you built. Move on. Music gave him a platform. The platform gave him access. Access gave him equity. And equity is the only asset that works while you sleep. The music industry is actually a terrible business if you're the artist. Labels own the masters. Venues take cuts. Streaming pays fractions of a cent per play. But if you treat fame as a distribution channel, to build brands, get into rooms, put your name on things that scale, you're playing a completely different game. Jay-Z once said, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman." Most people heard a flex. It was a balance sheet. The streets taught him that the product is never the business. The system around the product is the business. He just kept applying that at bigger and bigger scales. From Marcy Projects to a seat at the table with LVMH. Same brain, different arena.